Hi everyone, welcome to the very first recording for our class S6 Ethics. Our topic for today is citizenship. You might not have been aware of it, but we actually already introduced this topic before when I asked you to watch a video about the Rohingya crisis affecting a group of people, this minority in Myanmar, formerly Burma. So I hope you remember a few things about the Rohingya. We're going to try to connect the topic of citizenship to, the plight of the Rohingya people. Now to start off, maybe we can deal with some questions. I know there's not an in-person class, but you can try to answer these questions on your own. I'm sure you would be able to do this. It's just that, when talking about citizenship, I suppose we don't really talk about it or think about it explicitly. It's one of those things that we take for granted, I suppose, for most of us. So, I mean, if we were in class, I would ask you what your citizenship, actual citizenship is, whether you have one or more, and whether you know how you gain your citizenship, because there are several ways of having citizenship. We might as well ask ourselves, what is it anyway? What is this word? What is this idea of citizenship? You know, um, you can, of course, look it up in the dictionary, and this is a typical definition: the state of being a member of a particular country, and that's why I like this definition because it has this additional phrase and having rights because of it. Okay, so it's a state, so it's something that you're in. Apparently, it at the same time means that this state means that you are a member of a particular group. Okay, so you sort of belong to to a place and to a group of people. Some would call that a community. And by the very fact of belonging to that group of people or being in a specific area, a specific section of the world, you have rights. So, what are those rights? Well, you have legal and civil rights, meaning you can legally live and work in that particular area in the world. So, you don't have to do anything else apart from, I suppose, being of a certain age and looking for a job and being qualified for that job. So, you don't need, for instance, a work permit. You can live there for as long as you want. No, nobody, at least, in principle, nobody can boot you out of that particular place. You have certain protections. Like I said, you have legal rights, so you are protected under the law. Or if you are in another place outside of your country, then you can seek help, and usually your embassy or diplomatic mission or what do you, what do you call that apart from the embassy, like or your consular office, you know people working in those places can help you out. And you have political rights. I mean, that means that you can participate in the political life of your country, so you can participate in politics. The most common way of doing that is by voting. So you can even look at this. It's really what I listed here. It's a more general, in the sense that non-specific. These are not specific to any country. I mean, these things would be true in most cases in most countries. But I actually found that here. I mean, I found this just a kind of outline of what it means to be an EU citizen, to have EU citizenship. So, but all the rest, I mean, all of this is true for most countries anyway. But at the same time, let's not forget, I mean, in addition to the rights, you also have responsibilities. You would have certain responsibilities as a citizen. Some would say that political participation is a responsibility, or at the very least, you have to abide by the local laws. Of course, you have to pay your taxes. You have to somehow contribute to the functioning and welfare of the country and community you're a part of. And in some cases, you have to render military service in one form or another. Sometimes you're part of the reserves. In some countries like Israel, for instance, or Greece or Turkey, you really have to spend 1 year or a few months or 2 years in the military, things like that. So if you belong to the group, these are the things that you owe the group. Okay, so all of this is part of what it means to be a citizen. Now, how do you become a citizen? The two, I suppose most common ways are, in older political science discussions, like standard political science, they would call this jus soli, the law of the soil. So if you are born in a particular place, if you're born in the US, automatically you become a citizen. Okay, that might be true in other countries as well. Or you, you become a citizen by blood, use sanguinis, the law of blood. So if your parents are a, a citizen of a particular country, automatically once you're born, because you have these parents, then you become a citizen. In some countries, you have a combination of both. Um, of course, there are more, you might say, artificial ways like naturalization. You can apply to become a naturalized citizen of a country of your choice. Of course, there are certain conditions like you should have, at the moment that you apply, you should have been living there for a certain number of years. You should not be an economic burden, so you should have a job usually, or sometimes countries would require you to have certain interests in the country itself, like if you have a business or if you have friends, relatives, family in that place. So, you know, these facts could help you gain citizenship. So it's not automatic, you have to apply for it. Or through derivation, that means that if, for instance, me, if I wanted to become Belgian and I applied for Belgian citizenship, my child, when my child becomes, um, sorry, when my child can also become a kind of naturalized citizen, by way of association with me. My child derives that citizenship from the fact that I am a citizen. But as you can see, it's not so automatic as usually, or by virtue of being born in a place, or use sanguinis by virtue of being related by blood or having a parent of a certain uh, uh, citizenship. So in a way, it's more, you might say, artificial, like I said. Can you lose citizenship? You know, that's a fair question. Is it possible to lose your citizenship? And of course, you can also ask other questions relating to this, like, is it fair to refuse or deprive somebody of citizenship? And in what cases, if it's ever fair? What cases would those be? At least in the US, these are the rules. Different countries have similar ones. So, for instance, if you run for public office in a foreign country, then you lose American citizenship. If you serve in the military of, another power, another sovereign country, if you actually intend to give up your citizenship and, you applied for citizenship in another country, some countries wouldn't accept this. For instance, as far as I know, Japan doesn't can strip you of citizenship. It doesn't allow for dual citizenship. Or if you are a traitor to your country, if you were a spy, for instance, or I suppose you do something so terrible that your government would deem it necessary for you to be stripped of your citizenship. This is what they did to communists, early in the 20th century in the US. They were deported, they were sent away, and their citizenship, their being Americans, were taken away from them. We've also seen this in, Nazi Germany in the 30s, 1930s. If you remember your Essex history, the Nuremberg laws, which defined uh, what it meant to be Jewish. So if you had a grandparent who was Jewish, and also prohibited sexual relations between, people perceived to be Jewish and uh, people considered to be German or Aryan. So, but effectively, what this did was to really deprive certain people, sections of the population, of their German citizenship. We're not only talking about the Jews, of course, but also other so-called undesirables, like um, gypsies or the Roma people. Okay. Now, of course, coming full circle, coming back to the Rohingya crisis, if you remember, the Rohingya are not recognized as citizens of Myanmar. Okay. Now, is that fair? Does the Myanmar government have the right to do that? Even if, let's suppose that even if the Rohingya people are seen to be different and to some extent perceived to be a threat to the predominantly Buddhist nation of Myanmar. And of course, there are other questions like, you know, do you extend citizenship to migrants, to refugees, to asylum seekers? What would justify that, or what would justify refusing to give citizenship? Okay, so that's about it. There's going to be a short written task attached to this presentation. All right.